Good night at the Emirates for Arsenal, winning 4-0 obviously. For Manchester United, pitch was a concern over in the Netherlands. We must admit, I mean, AZ Alkmaar weren't playing at their own ground because of structural damage. Solar panels apparently on the roof collapsing after a storm. So they played on what was compared to something a bit like a hockey pitch from about 15 years ago. But again, Brandon Williams played, Mason Greenwood played, the wonderfully named Angel Gomez played as well. So again, Thursday night in the Europa League, an emphasis on youth for one of the big clubs in the Premier League.
Well, Manchester United are using this emphasis now on youth. We're in a building process. We're doing something new. We've obviously put lots of youngsters in again, give debuts, as you've mentioned. But I'm still not sure what the Manchester United supporters are going to be thinking when they don't get that result. It won't be deemed good enough. And again, it's just a poor start they've had. And I don't want to be overcritical at this stage of the season, but it's inevitable it's going to happen again tomorrow.
And no shots on target. That's a pretty damning reflection on. I mean, and again, maybe the comparison to what Manchester United were. I mean, that's as an argument that's gone now, hasn't it? Because they're nowhere near what they would have been in the pomp. But creatively, attack-wise. That, I mean, talk about one of their major strengths. It was an all-out assault on the opposition goal, wasn't it?
Well, it was. That was what Manchester United were, and when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer got the job, that's what he wanted to do. He had to create opportunities, he wanted to let them be free, the wide players, getting crosses in, and that's what they did when he first did it. But now, when you look striker at the top of the pitch, they've got Daniel James for all he's done very, very well this season. He's leading the line. So, you talk about shots on target, you bring on Jesse Lingard, he gets injured, Rashford comes on, they've let the strikers go in Lukaku and Sanchez, and I'm not sure they've got enough right at the top of the pitch to hurt teams.
It's a huge issue for them, isn't it, in terms of scoring goals and being potent. And I know, I think it was right for Lukaku to move on, both for him and for the club. I thought that...
Well, purely from a personality point of view, because, I mean, his figures matched up with some of the best in the Premier League for goal scoring, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean... I can't remember it being as good as that. Perhaps I've got the wrong perception of that, but it just didn't seem to match with the club. And he always seemed to be under criticism. Whether or not he was happy there in that time, it'd be really interesting to know. But I think when the transfer fee was substantial, the club and
everyone agreed,
and the player, and it just seemed
but
right.
If you know that's coming though, why is there nobody else? Do they think they've got enough? Joe, you're sort of saying, you know that's coming for such a long time. Sanchez is still the problem as well. But yet, they feel obviously that they had enough. Yeah. But it doesn't look like they have.
Well, all it needs is an injury, i.e. Martial is out for a while, and you really are looking at slim pickings. For a club like Manchester United, it's not the place for them to be.
And they've got Newcastle on at the weekend. I mean, it's on Sunday. We're in a position where now they've not won in 10 away games, which is an unwanted record that, I mean, it goes back to the 80s. Where do we find ourselves? I mean, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, huge fanfare when he came into as the saviour, if you like. It's a troubled period, etc., etc., etc. When do we start judging him solely on his managerial ability?
We're going around, but no doubt about it, this is a game that they do not want to lose. They've got to win at Newcastle. It could be difficult. What Newcastle side that we'll see, I'm not so sure, but it's a tough one. If they don't win, the pressure's going to be ranked up massively. And that's what you expect from Manchester United. But, I'm not sure what they are.
And they haven't scored more than one goal in a game since the opening day of the season. Again, dovetails into what you were saying about who's available to play up front and who is in a position of form to score when they're playing up front.
Absolutely. But even without that, you think there should be enough in the team to be creating opportunities more. And other players weighing in with goals, midfield players, fullbacks. We watch Manchester City, Liverpool. They've got players scoring from all over the pitch. So, yes, the centre forward is obviously hugely important, but they've got to have more coming from other areas as well.
Well, I mean, is it a squad that reflects that?
I'm not sure if it is, because you lose Martial, who for me is a big threat, and actually started the season quite well. Rashford, who's had a bit of a dip in form or maybe confidence. I saw him with an opportunity against Arsenal at home. He just didn't look confident in front of goal. So if that's your lead striker at the moment, you've then got Lingard, who hasn't been performing. He was another player that probably last season before weighed in with a goal. You start to add it up and you think, well, where are the goals going to come from other than from a centre forward?
What did they start looking at? I mean, Mason Greenwood, he seems to be the hot new thing. Ole's talking about his ability as a finisher, and one of the best he's ever seen. It's a lot of responsibility for a young man, isn't it?
It is a lot of responsibility, and I know we've seen him. I think he's played for 77 minutes tonight, so he's got a fair bit of the game. But again, creating chances. What are they creating for him? Not to put too much pressure on him. He's another young player. They are building that up, and that's what the Manchester United supporters want. They want something to be excited about. And at the moment, they're not getting it.
Does that mean that there's a bit more patience there when they're seeing their young talent coming into the side? And again, that word transition, transitional season, etc. It can't go on for too much longer, surely.
At the start of the season, I didn't hear that word of transition, that sort of noise coming out of Manchester United, that we're in transition. It was more, we've signed 2 players to sort out the defence, Wan-Bissaka, Maguire. Let's sort the excitement, the first day against Chelsea, and you're thinking, this is the Manchester United. Everybody's saying where they be. All of a sudden, they start to lose some games. It's all about the youth. We're changing things. So I don't know if that's just a little one to bat off the problems that they've got. And we understand it. They are far behind Liverpool and Manchester City, but they've got to do a little bit better. Recruitment's being mentioned, and you can probably see why.
I mean, James has been great in the recruitment front, hasn't he? I mean, he's been a huge success. I mean, without him and his performances this season, I mean, he really has held it together. And I think Maguire as well and Wan-Bissaka.
But they were the most obvious signings, weren't they? If you look and say, them 2 were a given. Yes, they've paid a lot of money.
But they've still gone out and got them.
Yeah.
So you have to say, well, you're addressing that issue. You've gone and got them. It's just the midfield is an interesting position. I mean, you might have a better take, but the balance they have in midfield, from creativity to mobility, winning the ball back, that mix of a midfield that can do a little bit of everything, I think it's very difficult with the players they have, with Pogba in there, McTominay, Fred who played tonight, Matic played tonight. It's hard to know what is their best midfield.
Normally you look at the other teams and you sort of say that's their 3. They might change one, when they've played in midweek in the Champions League or Europa League, whatever it may be. But with Manchester United, as you say, you're just not sure where and what is the right way and who plays more advanced, who sits. They've just not got it right at the moment.
It's strange with the personnel as well. I mean, because going off what Matt's just said there, we're talking about the young players and how they're getting blooded, and it's a wonderful thing for a supporter to see. But, I mean, Matic hasn't had a look in. He still seems undecided about what Mata can do. I mean, you talk about in Matic, someone who's won the Premier League. I mean, Mata as well. I mean, these are players that have got experience.
We're not talking about the struggling for personnel there. Exactly. You would expect them to do better.
And the character in the side. What Matt's talking about there, the mixture in midfield. So why not have the kind of holding kind of capabilities of a Matic and allow Pogba in a position where he can go and be as good as a Pogba as he can be?
That was so successful at the start. When Solskjaer first came in, he just said to Pogba, go high up the pitch.
But what is it? Why is he not giving that? Why are they not giving the opportunity? Are they not putting the work rate in? Are they not at the level? Because obviously, they're monitoring every single thing they do. McTominay's come in and done very well. Yeah. So, he's gone ahead of people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why that is. Maybe he doesn't feel that there's enough security. Perhaps because the back 4 have been so poor. He's had to sit with 2 midfielders and Pogba dropped closer. But the success with Pogba high up the pitch was brilliant when Solskjaer first came in.
Just to specifically go back to the game this evening, and we heard Ole Gunnar Solskjaer talk about the pitch before. A cynic might say preemptively that's building a case for the post-match press conference. The pitch wasn't very good, so we didn't get the result. Would that be something, I mean, playing-wise, yes, it sounds bad. I mean, the manager said it's one of the worst artificial surfaces he's ever seen. But as a player going onto the pitch, subliminally, there's been a seed sown there, hasn't there?
Yeah, so if I was putting my Manchester City hat on, I'd probably go into it a little bit too harsh. But it is a level, as you know, when you play on them pitches, and it wasn't even a good one. So you've got to give that the benefit of the doubt. It is a leveler. Yes, you can train on it once or twice before you go, but if you're not used to playing on it, I didn't like it. I don't know about you guys.
You always know about it afterwards.
Yeah.
What from the joints point of view?
It's the days after that you really feel that game.
Imagine playing in midfield when you had to run around as well.
I'll stop us there before we start sounding too old. Wolves, though, good result for them against Besiktas. That follows up the good result at the weekend against Watford. They're up to 13th now in the Premier League. Are we seeing, perhaps, I was going to say, we're going to see their season up and running, but they've got Manchester City coming up. Yeah. So, barring that, are we seeing them turn a little bit of a corner, do you feel?
I think they're adjusting. I think they're adjusting, and it's something that might take a little bit of time from a very settled, almost routine. I've said it about Europa League before, is that one of the biggest things it disrupts is your routine. Your Thursdays, your Sundays, your training days go a bit off kilter, and I think that's one of the hardest adjustments for a team that steps into the Europa League.
And what we lauded Wolves for getting into the Premier League was minimal changes, a smallish squad, albeit a squad that's facilitated by Champions League experience and a dynamic which allows very, very good players to come into the second tier of English football. Again, in the Premier League, a wonderful finish last season. Have they got the depth to be able to deal with Thursday, Sunday, as Matt's alluded to there?
Well, that was always the concern. I mean, there were a revelation last season regarding the way they played, how they went about it, and the expectation went up a level when you're signing Cutrone, Neto, and you're thinking, where can they go? And there's a lot of excitement. I covered the games early on, the preliminary games, and they were saying, where can we finish?
Everyone else has been getting fit.
The amount of games they've played, and they were saying, all the Wolves supporters around the place, we expect to be up around 7th, 6th. And I said, you have to be cautious with this Europa League, what it does for you. We've seen Burnley only recently. And squad-wise, yes, they've got a little bit more than they had last season. And he's only making 1 or 2 changes. So if you see in the games, when you look at the Arsenals and Manchester United, he predominantly still only makes his 1 or 2 changes. If we look here, it's still Bolly, Cody. Yes, he didn't play Bennett or Vallejo. And Romain Saiss goes back into a back 3, but other than that, Neves might go 1, Traore might come in down the right hand side, so there's not a huge amount of change there, so it will be a big load. But going into those games, what he did mention was he was getting the players already adapting for it, so his sessions were already loaded for this. So they think they had the right philosophy and the right sort of numbers and loading to get that right. So they were trying to put that in. Not sure how we could do that. We discussed it earlier, didn't we? Which was difficult to have that same effect as a game in training, but they thought they had it.
I'm really surprised he hasn't played 2 different teams to a degree. I think with that competition, especially at this stage, I remember doing it with Stoke and Tony Pulis brought a few new players in. We had quite a big squad, but he literally separated the Premier League from the Europa League.
And were the players happy with that? They understood that was the situation?
I think so, because you then had a group of players that kind of fell a little bit between the two, and that would be used or not, or players that weren't getting an opportunity because the squad was big would play Europa, because there was quite a lot of Europa League games, and you were playing away. They were big games. They were good matches to play in, and it worked really well. And I felt that it didn't affect the team's Premier League performance as much. And when you see the teams going all out in every game, all the Europa League matches, I think it can have a big impact, especially when you come back and you're away from home on the Sunday, and you've been away in the Europa League on the Thursday. It takes a lot to get it into your legs to go and win another Premier League game away from home.
So what then becomes success for them this season? I mean, it's in every supporter's right, isn't it, to get the expectation levels ramped up after a good season. Then do you have to temper it with a bit of realism to say, well, it would be great to finish in exactly the same place, but our workload has intensified significantly?
Well, ideally, yes, they'll go on and do very, very well in the Europa League, finish as high as they can, but they've got to be realistic. I think you've got to be excited by the transition in the football club. When you go there, you see the change, you see you see everybody, smiles on their faces, and the recruitment, etc., what they've gone on and done. But we've just got to be a little bit cautious. We've got to understand that type of load, and hopefully that supporters can get behind the team. If it's not going so well, back them. And I'm sure they will, because it's been an incredible transformation.